Samuel Ennis is top 1% agent in Commerce Valley, British Columbia, multi-decade hands-on experience as real estate agent. He appeared in top 15 EXP Canada agents 2022. He had been into construction, sales and marketing, interior designing, window covering business, flipping homes, and finally became real estate broker and currently own a big team. Hey, you seem like a superhuman to me. How did you do this?
Well, I started in construction when I was 14 years old, so I have a whole background of restorations and doing for insurance companies. We were taking care of leaky condos in Vancouver, so it was a big deal back in the mid-90s. And I continued that on with my father for 15 years, and then through the time in the process there, I met my lovely wife on Vancouver Island here, and she was in sales and marketing, and she was getting me into pyramid scheme. USANA as a vitamin company. So anyways, I got involved with that, and then I got onto Vancouver Island where we live now, and felt doing interior design might help something to start flipping houses with my dad as he was getting into construction on the island as well. So end of the day, we were kind of in a bind of where we should go. I was getting spread thin of like doing interior design, flipping houses and construction, and also working at a restaurant at the same time. I had to narrow this in and really figure out where I can go and mishmash this all together and point it to one thing, and it was obviously real estate. So, you put into all those history of trades of having construction, interior design, window covering companies, you can really help your sellers out of what to look out for in the sale of their home and point out all the negatives and all the positives of a house when you get in there. And so I use all those attributes that I carry through, and obviously it's benefited me in many ways. I still use my old trades into nowadays times where, even as a buyer's agent, which I still am, you have all the knowledge of construction that you can actually really help your sellers and buyers out in that process of purchasing and selling their home.
Question to you actually, why listing agent?
Well, I can pretty much replicate exactly what Chanel said there earlier, is that you have more time to yourself. You can book your own time with your clients, do your follow-ups, make those appointments with them, and not be a walk-in clinic when your buyers want to see a house today in 1 hour. Those times are very stressful, and writing those offers and trying to get it in on time, not being a buyer's agent's nothing wrong with it, don't get me wrong. But being a listing agent, you have more freedom, a little more time, and I don't take more than 15 listings at a time. I have a team where I'm going to be putting those off to the team members, because if you have too many listings, you're going to be diluted, and you won't be able to service your sellers properly. So I always say cap it out at 15. Depends on your market though. If you're just shuffling and turning over every day, then keep them going.
What are the common pre-listing appointment steps that you follow to secure the listing?
Well, we have a system we go through is the who, what, why, when, and how we're getting there. And so we go through these questions. We have a spreadsheet we go through. We make sure all these questions are answered. So the who are the decision makers in the process? Who are the family members that are going to be making the move with you or the sale process with you? Where are we going to be going? When's the timeline? When do we want to sell? When do we want to be there? What are the concerns and the deal breakers that are going to stop you from going forward with the sale of your home? And then how are we going to get there is, are we doing a mortgage? Are we having to refinance to purchase the next property? You got to figure out all those step by steps. And once you get all this stuff down, the who's and the decision makers in this, you kind of got down to a T where their dog's name, their kids' names, the school, the grades they're in, and then they feel that you already know so much about them that there's already a trust being built. And then after that phone call conversation, before we start the listing presentation, when I go to their house, I get on a BombBomb video. I don't know if anyone here knows BombBomb, I'm sure there's quite a few here, but I'll get on a BombBomb video and say, hey, thank you for taking that call. I'm really excited to be coming over to meet you guys today. And Cujo, your dog, hopefully it's leashed up before I get there. Here's my listing presentation already. We have a seller's guide, and I'll send it to them in a PDF form, and then they'll have that ready to go. So when I get there, if they have any questions on the seller's guide itself, then I can, they may not want to have the open houses, or they may not want a realtor's tour to come through, or a realtor's lunch, or anything like that. So we know what we can kind of fight against when I get there, so we're not wasting too much time on going through that. I was going to chime in here a little bit with this. As when I first got into real estate, I was always quite anxious when I got to the appointment. I wanted in and I wanted out and I wanted the deal to happen, right? Now, just starting this year, I've implemented to spending more time with the client and actually building a really solid relationship with them. Where at the beginning points, I was actually saying no to water, saying no to coffee. I'm okay, no, I'm good. I'd sit at the edge of the table and just like lean forward and, have a little bit of anxiousness to it. And they could read that, right? Now I'm actually sitting back, taking the water, taking the coffee, and spending like the last 2 appointments I had, I spent almost 2 hours with the client. Just sitting there, not even talking about the sale process. It was all about them, their families, their pets, their history of where we live, and really actually building that strong relationship. And at the end of the day, you almost want to give them a hug goodbye, right? And this one guy, I was just at his farm, and I don't know much about machinery or tractors and stuff like this in this farm, but he just started talking about his tractors and his spray room where he sprays all his mechanical pieces of equipment. And I'm just going with it. I'm like, oh, that's cool, right on. How long have you been doing this for? And, started bringing in these questions about his passions. And at the end of the day, he's like, well, before I got here, he says, I got 4 other agents that are going to be coming here this week. And just want to let you know, my wife's the main decision maker, but she was sick in bed with a migraine. But at the end of this whole conversation, walking around the farm and hanging out with this guy, he's like, you know what? We're just going to use you. This is the way it is. I like you. You referred to me. I trust you. You know how, the construction talk was in there because he is a builder as well. And so, end of the day, just got to spend more time with him and don't be rushed. Make sure you have that 2-hour buffer when you get to the listing appointment, just in case these conversations carry on. Because it might be an emotional sale, and they might want to start talking about the history of the apple tree their kids used to swing on, or whatever. It can go pretty in deep with the family, and it depends on the situations. If it's a divorce, if it's an estate sale, or whatnot. Another appointment I just went on was an estate property, and the gentleman was alive 3 weeks ago, and then the whole thing collapsed, obviously. And so now we had to go through the process of the probate. And I get there and they're not grieving at all. They're actually seemed like nothing happened. But I got down there and I had a conversation with them for 2 hours about grievance because I was part of the hospice society. So I had a little bit of knowledge on the behavioral patterns of somebody who loses a loved one. And it was one of these things where I was like, it's going to happen eventually. And I kind of went with this, and we sat down for about 2 hours going through how proud her dad was with the home, and I was really appreciating her passion, what her dad did to the house, and went with that, right? So there's all these different situations you can get to, and you don't even know it till you get to the door sometimes. It can just be thrown in your face. You're like, oh, okay, I didn't know about that yet. Even if after those questions I go through before I get there, sometimes things can spark when you get there too.
No, you are 100% right. How do you tailor your approach when presenting to different type of salaries?
Well, really, you have to find out what their behavioral patterns are when you get there. So on that phone call conversation before you get to the home, I have gone through this DISC profile platform through Tony Robbins again. You got to do it. You got to know what your behavior patterns are so you can read other people and how they act. Like there's a dominant side of things. There's people that are more of an influential type of person, a slow and steady type of person, or someone that's very detail oriented. So when you know which kind of behavioral patterns they have with that, then you know how to present that. Because some guy would say, let's just get a list of, I don't care, just put the price on the house, you're a salesman, you know how to do it, go, right, or whatever. Or then you have the person that's a slow and steady, where you have to really cater to that approach slowly and find detail. The C on the DISC profile is more detail oriented. And so what we do is a Loom video where we have a share screen about the presentation before we get there, how the sale process happens, detail, fine points of even the market, the listings that are comparable to the property, have that all on video for them to hold on to. So even after you do the sales presentation in person, they still have that to go back to and overlap. And maybe if they have more questions after the fact, if you haven't signed the contract when you left, they can go back to that and have more questions for you if there's anything that comes up.
No, that's right.
Well, come on, your first listing is always the most emotional one, right? You get very excited, you get the tears in the eyes. Well, I did at least. I'm a little emotional sometimes, and I ended when I put the sign in the ground. I live in a small town, so we don't have the sign guys that will do everything for you. At that time, this is going back 15 years ago, there wasn't such a thing, so you have to do it yourself, right? And spiking that sign in the ground, man, it was just the most emotional things. I knew we were getting out of the rut we were in at that time. It was like, finally we're here, we're gonna do it. And it was a family member that gave me the listing. I didn't even have a contract, I didn't even know how to fill out the thing. I was like, oh, I'll have to take this back to my managing broker, because I didn't have any leadership when I came in. There was nothing. You just did your goofy contract that they said to fill out. And you fill in the blanks and left you to it. There was no leadership or no mentorship. And then another realtor that got me into Remax at the time, he started mentoring me, and he gave me a listing that was just up the street from my house as a patio home. But this guy that owned this property, he owned the biggest winery in our area called 40 Knots, and it was his wife's like getaway house, just to get away from him. Because after 7 o'clock at night, we couldn't call him because he was at the winery drinking the wine. So end of the day, he came to me after I had the patio home up. He said, "Hey, I want you to sell my winery." And this is my second listing. I'm like, winery? I'm like, shit. I'm like, I can't do that. I don't know how to do this. So I called the mentor. They got me in connection with them. And I said, hey, what if I bring so-and-so in to the, I'm not going to say names because I know a couple people here know him. What if I bring him in? He's like, no, you're going to be my guy. I want you to be my guy. You're going to sell this place. I know you can. You're driven. You're young. You got the drive. I want you to do this. I denied it. He ended up hiring up the managing broker in the office at the time, or the broker owner, and ended up firing him because he didn't like his job. So I'm like, why would he fired me? Because I had no knowledge in selling wine at wineries. So end of the day though, it really boosted my ego by having that confidence, by getting that first listing.